Welcome to Thrivecast. We are meeting growth and product leaders all around the world. And today with me is the famed Mario. Mario, you have been a product and a growth advisor at so many places. I have always drawn inspiration from your podcast on PLG Fall Starts. I think back in the day when I started to know more about your post, you were a softer. I think this was a couple of years back, and since then I've been tracking your LinkedIn post, your various things that you do. But I listen to a lot of the podcasts that you have. Welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Thank you so much for the kind words. I'm doing really well. Thanks for having me. Excited about the conversation. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you. Thank you so much. And just before, to all the listeners, just before this podcast, I was just complimenting Mario about the location where he is in. I wasn't aware that Anduro Ordino is a real place, and it is such a beautiful place. Compliments to Mario for, you know, uh, you know, staying connected to the roots there. So
Thank you
to
for that.
today's topic, jumping to the today's topic, Mario, you have been talking to so many people out there in the industry, and this is kind of a reverse podcast, if you will, right? So typically you are the one who's interviewing, and this is an opportunity for me to pick the brains of an interviewer who has retained so much, over the years. So the topic of this call today is there a prescriptive guide on implementing PLG? I know that you've worked at so many places, primarily around product-led growth, primarily on growth. Growth at software was very different. You've been running the product-led stack. There's so many categories. I was inspired by the number of products out there. Could you maybe, share a little about yourself and the work that you do before we jump into the topic?
Yeah, of course. Very simple career path for me. I I started. Uh, I spent the majority of my career in a company called OutSystems.
Hmm.
And heavy B2B SaaS company, great product. Um, with that was really ahead of his time, really ahead of his time in the sense that in the very beginning, it required a lot of selling, a lot of evangelizing, and we were always obsessed. And this was like 17, 18 years ago.
Hmm.
Very much always obsessed about how can we make this simpler? Why don't people get it? What is it that we can do? And we spent, myself and the team there, many years optimizing that buyer's journey. By coincidence, a few years ago, I left OutSystems to work for companies that had simpler products, easier to evaluate, easier to buy. And sort of this in my transitioning out and into these new challenges, I started advising for companies that were going through similar situations. In the meantime, PLG gets coined. Wes Bush writes the book, and what is product and growth working together to grow a company now has a name, or at the time was given a name. And I've been doing advisory for PLG companies for a long time now, or for companies that want to grow through their product for a long time now, mostly B2B. So that's more or less where I play.
So I think you mentioned about you met Wes and then product-led word got coined. How did you get associated to product-led? And I'm sure there's some inside story then how you and Wes met and how did the whole product-led domain get registered. You write a book, and you suddenly are joining hands, doing podcasts and talking to leaders around the world. How did that come into being?
It was a coincidence, really. I was working at OutSystems at the time. Wes was actually, and this was in Lisbon, Portugal. Wes was actually living in Lisbon.
Hmm.
And he was just like trying to connect with people from companies because he wanted to test this new thing that he was thinking in his head about optimizing onboarding and getting people together around this problem of getting people to value quicker. And he asked if he could join us
Hmm.
to teach us the workshop. That's how we met. Um,
Okay.
and so it was really, and then from that moment on we became friends, and then later after he wrote the book and launched productled.com, I joined as a coach and as an advisor to productled.com, and it's been a few years. It's been a few years that we've been working together, actually meeting him in half an hour. So so that's that. And he has a great platform. He's a great person, and he is extremely committed to value, creating products, interactions, whatever it is that offer value. And that was one transformation in myself in the way I think about all of this that I owe to us for sure.
Yeah, this is an interesting story, Mario, right? So I think maybe a couple of years back, as the product led growth, the PLG term was getting coined, much of the value proposition or much of the conversations were about simplified onboarding. Much of the conversations were about free trials. But
Mm-hmm.
today it has evolved to so much more. So maybe if you could, uh, in maybe in your own words, why is PLG becoming more and more important? And more so, the second question around is why is it so difficult to build towards PLG?
To me, I summarize product-led growth in three things. Um, and I couldn't. I'm not one of those dogmatic like people that only sees PLG all around. I actually, to me, PLG was a term that I'm grateful that it bubbled up, however, and by whomever, that helped create um, common ground for us to think better about how to deliver great products. So that's to me is PLG, whatever it takes. But I would summarize. But I would summarize. Um, I would say it's much more than simply onboarding people. To me, it starts, and again, I have the bias of the B2B. Uh, I'm biased by B2B, which is my experience. But to me, a product needs to be easy to adopt, easy to use, easy to sell. And so those three easies are the things that I would strategically look at. And so when it comes to being easy to adopt, you have to, you can break it down. The value proposition needs to be easy to understand. The You have to be able to test it somehow and understand if it's for you or not. So the easy to adopt can be um, can be that as well. And then once the product is adopted, will it expand? And so it has to be easy to use. Obviously, easy to sell is somewhat orthogonal to all of this, but if there's too much friction, then it's going to take too long to sell. Maybe it's okay for some companies. It's okay to have 6, 9, 12, 18 months of sales cycle. But the companies that reach out to me normally are concerned, and they want to find out ways to shorten that sales cycle. And so, in essence, and I don't want to ramble too much, it's a combination of things. But like my boss, one of my former bosses, used to say, and I remember about him all the time, former Adobe executive. His name is Steve Rotter. He would used to say, it's the little things that make the big things possible. And with products and with PLG is the same thing.
That's a beautiful framework. Easy to adopt, easy to use, easy to sell. Could you maybe help understand if it's an early stage startup? right? How should they think about, these three framework levels? Sure enough, they don't have, maybe let's take this case in point. There's a very early stage startup. They don't have sales led growth. They don't even have a product market fit yet, and yet they're thinking that, hey, it's should I go product led versus should I go sales led? And these days they read a lot of marketing material, conversations on LinkedIn, Elena Varna, OpenView, Kyle Poyer, and they're like, hey, you know what? Maybe product-led growth, if it allows me to self-serve my product, should I begin from there? Versus should I go the SLG route? Maybe taking a peeling this back a little bit. How should the early stage startup think about, think about their growth strategies? Should they go PLG or should they go SLG, or should they from day one think about PLG plus SLG?
I think an early stage an early stage startup without product market fit needs to go in whatever way works. They need to find initial traction. They need strong signals of initial traction, especially now that it's harder to get funding.
Correct.
And so I don't I so that's one thing. They need to go whatever route it makes sense for them to go. So I wouldn't say without context. I wouldn't be able to say without context what is the right answer. But I will say that that for my framework to think about it is there volume? Is there enough volume? So are you targeting a market, a use case that has hundreds of thousands or millions of potential users, maybe a fraction of that of potential buyers? Then offering a going for an hybrid product led growth, product and sales led growth motion is probably the right way to do long term if the company succeeds. If there's not volume, like if you're just selling to, I don't know, the 1,000 companies in the world that produce whatever, then there's no point in creating that go to market motion. Now, in either scenario, there are tactics that you can apply in context to help the 1,000 potential customers company to survive, to make it. But it will not be a pure. It will for sure not be a self-service motion that then will drive individuals to be engaged, that then will drive teams to be engaged, and the company to adopt worldwide, company-wide. So that's I guess that's that. So I would look for what is the size of your TAM. Is there an individual use case? Is there a team use case and a company-wide use case? And if there is, then the product-led go-to-market is for you. And by product-led go-to-market, majority of the time when I mention this, I'm always referring to a hybrid motion when where there's sales and where there's a self-service motion and a sales-driven motion working together.
I think that makes sense. So maybe let's break this down, one by one. I think the first
Mm-hmm.
one you mentioned that if it's an early stage startup, they
Mm-hmm.
take whatever steps that they can, but if they find that the time is enough and there's a lot of volume that people can sign into their product, a
Mm-hmm.
PLG or self-serve motion can probably be a good fit.
Mm-hmm.
Let's assume that for now. Let's assume that there's a startup or there are a bunch of startups who think that their time is big and they want to test this out, right? What recommendations or what prescriptive guidance that you can give them on where should they begin this journey? If they want to begin this journey on the PLG side, where should they begin? Let me, enable the context around this. Should they think of, bring their product for free trial as the first step? Bring their product for just having to self-serve and get the users to try the product? Is that a first step? Should they not do that and fix the onboarding, make sure that the onboarding is simple, and then do the self-serve portion as a first step? Should they do the analytics and figuring out the data associated to who's using, what's using? Should they first invest in that and then enable self-serve as the first step? So how should they think about getting started?
Yeah, so it's a good question. For first decision that needs to be made is what are they going to be optimizing for? Are they going to optimize for market penetration in that big hypothetical big total addressable
Hmm.
market fast? Uh, if that's the case, perfect. If they were able to map out an hypothesis about how do they monetize all these users, and it's somewhere um, in their plan, then they have something, right? They're just
Hmm.
acquiring users for the sake of acquiring users. There are many companies that did that and did not succeed. So you have to have at least a theory about how you're going to monetize. But the first thing, if that's the case, then probably a freemium version would be what I would go, like similar to what Loom did. They just
Hmm.
launched the product in a free version, very very unrestricted free version. Then only a few years back they started to
Push.
gate
Yeah.
and monetize and restrict and whatnot. So I would start there. Foundations to all of this, for foundations to all of this is that you have to have set up this 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 stack of tools and technology that will help you. That will have tools and technology, or at least you have to support this. You need to know what your users are doing. You need to know what roadblocks they use. There are a bunch of tools that can help you with that. And Obviously, if the assumption here is a self-service journey, then what happens is that they will not have anyone to support them. So onboarding, documentation, and maybe some way to proactively understand where users get stuck so you can unstuck them, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of that needs to be in place. Someone is calling this, I don't remember the name of the lady, I'm so sorry, but she was calling this the modern growth stack. This is the term that she was using as a alluding to the modern data stack uh, term that is out
Ah,
there now
okay.
as
I
well.
think I've heard this term. Was it Sam Richards? Probably. I'm not sure. But
I
I've
don't
heard.
think it's. I don't think it's Sam. It's well. If you, I'll. It will occur to me. It will occur to me.
So I think what you're saying, Mario, is that first of all, they should start testing the market right away, right? Instead of they building all of this at once, just like what Loom did. They put their
Mm-hmm.
product out there, they launched it, they started getting the feedback and understood that there is a primary value proposition for the product, right?
Mm-hmm.
Without which, investing in all the other aspects, of growth, like
Mm-hmm.
file management, or even self-service monetization, simpler onboarding, all of that may not make sense unless until there's a value. Looks like that's what you're suggesting, and then
Yeah.
iterate faster from there. Is that right? Am I
Mm-hmm.
am I getting the right wind
Yeah.
from that? Okay.
Yeah. That's more or less that. There are many assumptions floating around in this conversation. Yes.
Yeah. So maybe the next question is, how do they know that they are doing the right things? Right. For example, you mentioned, some companies they optimize towards acquisition. They get a lot of users, trying the product and they drop off. But how do they know? How does someone know? Early stage company know that they are on the right path? Now, are there any indicators? Are there any feelers
Mm-hmm.
that you can get from these launches?
Yeah. So Well, you'll know when you start to see, well, first you start to see excitement and you start to see signups going up.
Mm-hmm.
Shortly after engagement going up, and retention of your users
Mm-hmm.
not going up, but at least stabilizing to a point where you're not losing them all within your first 2-3 weeks. Um, and my favorite signal is there's someone that wants to buy. So you
Mm-hmm.
start to see people willingly, giving you their money. And I've had in companies that I've worked for, we've had customers saying that they were paying. They did not need the product, but they were paying because they liked us.
Mm-hmm. Ah,
There's this that they could use the free edition, but they paid because they wanted to support the project. That is not indicative of product market fit, but is indicative um, of something related with the community that you're building and the fans that you're creating. But as far as product market fit, we've also had in similar example would be people calling in for non-boarding call or whatever, and we having that conversation and them telling us your product is too cheap. I would pay twice as much, 3 times as much, and they continue to pay and refer to other users. So these early signals are really, really important. Depending on what scale you're at, you may start to seeing them on your email box, and then you start to be able to predict that 5% of people that start a free edition eventually pay. 40 to 50% of people that start a trial eventually pay, and your growth as far as traffic is concerned, when you got that traction, when you get past that initial traction, should be growing 100% year on year, something along those lines.
so, in your experience, Mario, how long does it? Maybe if you could give some examples, from your own learnings there. How long does it take for a startup as they decide to go PLG? Get to a place where acquisition rates are higher. They're able to retain these users, and they're starting to or willingness to pay. Is it a couple of months since they get incorporated and started, or is it a little longer than that?
It was just today, I think, that Lenny posted a list of like 25 to 30 companies, and
Mm-hmm.
you'll see the range is very big. Is like from 6 months, he says 3 months, 6 months to like 18, 12, sometimes. I'm sorry, 18, 24 months. So it's a big range. I would say so. It I haven't. All the companies I've worked with had already some sort of traction. Like when you decide to go all in, uh, there's no growth without product market fit.
Yeah.
Let me put
Yeah.
it like that.
Yeah.
Just this one is going to say hi. Say hi.
Hello there.
Um, so there's nothing to grow if you don't have product market fit. So so um, so you need to fix that problem first before anything else, which makes thinking about all of this infrastructure, et cetera, that is required. My recommendation is that you do the minimum possible. Your focus should be in finding product market fit. If you haven't, you should be selling manually for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 months until you nail it. And when you get it, then that's a good problem to have. But that's my perception.
Yeah. No, I
But there
see.
are many. Yeah, go ahead.
No. I see Lenny's post on that. I see people are forwarding that. So on the LinkedIn, I'm seeing that. Yeah. So Miro looks like it's taken a couple of years, but Canva got it much more quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Amplitude got it 1.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're right. So it's a whole range. From a couple of months to maybe like even 3-4 years. This is very interesting to see.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It is. Yeah, I think it is impressive, and I've seen founders putting their focus and their energy in the wrong place. When you don't have product market fit, it doesn't. When you're at the point that you're building and building and building and building and there's no one buying, there's no one using, something is wrong, and you may want to redirect your resources, your energy,
Correct.
finding that first.
Correct. Yeah. So
That's what
if I
that's what we do at Graphext, which is the company that I spend the most time with right now. Um, is just that, it's all hands on deck, trying to accelerate product market fit.
I'm sure that you'll be doing wonderful things. I've seen your history with software, right? And it is extremely fast. So if I run these numbers, Mario, is this right to say that typically, for all of the companies that Lenny has posted and a few others that people are looking at, is this right? If I take in general average, it takes about maybe 9 to 12 months time for them
Mm-hmm.
to achieve like a baseline product market fit. And most
Mm-hmm.
of them are not self-serve by the product market fit. They actually start making it self-serve much later, right?
Yeah,
Unless they are like a prosumer,
probably.
unless they are like a loom, right, who wants to begin with self-serve very early on, right? But everyone else was not. It was all handheld. Like Amplitude did not even have a self-serve.
Superhuman, there are many.
Correct,
Yeah.
correct. This is very interesting. So we'll probably do some more research on that, and we'll post out what we find. I'm really looking at how much time and how much money do people spend, to get to uh, the baseline PLG readiness, meaning it could be even a baseline PLG self-serve. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so let me ask my next question to you, and we'll wrap it up, very soon after that. How important is data? How important is data for these startups to understand? And are there any tools in the industry that you think that helps them to essentially become product-led enabled? I know there are so many tools. You have a whole stack of tools, and in our quest to answer this question, we are doing interviews with so many SaaS builders, and they're finding it very, very difficult to choose so many product categories, so many tools to essentially bring all of them together.
Yeah.
What's an easier way, for them to get to self-serve, understand the data, and take it from there?
Data is absolutely crucial. So the data tells you what problems, what challenges, what opportunities are there. Interviewing customers, talking to your users will tell you the why those things are there, and then it's the intelligence of people that will get the creative solutions. So data is absolutely of the essence. Qualitative data and quantitative data. Focusing just on um, quantitative data, there are many tools out there that will promise a bunch of things. Some even promise that they will tell you which experiments to run in your product, which I find intriguing and fascinating. If you had asked me this maybe 2, 3, 4 months ago, I would have a different opinion. Right now, I'm more into the weeds of data than I was ever before in my life with Graphext. That I my opinion change. I think there's the beauty of data is the most value of data that you get comes when you pair data uh, with the human, the intuition of a human, the creativity of a human, and so on and so forth. And so that, to me, that's where the beauty of data, the value of data shines. June, SO, amplitude, mixed panel, etc., are like the basic thing that you should have, at least to measure the behavior of your users. It will tell you what is going on. It does not tell you why what's going on is going on. And that's the next generation of data tools that are coming in, which are going to help you understand the why. So, for example, you know that a bunch of customers are coming in and a bunch of users are coming in from Google. They say they are from the banking industry and they're converting at 75% versus the others that are converting at 20%. Now, Should we just redirect the entire company to go after banking and stop others? Most likely not, because the fact that there's one relationship between, I use this term loosely, between users coming in from that industry converting, doesn't mean that it is the single variable that is having that impact. Most likely there are 50 more, and correlations are rarely as simple as a cause and effect.
Position,
And
yeah.
that's where tools like that will enable you to do these complex analyses will help you understand, hey, it's in fact 14 factors that are affecting this instead of one. And so your decision will be different if you know this information. Most of the teams that I work with do not get this deep in their working. Fortunately, right now, my team is a team of data scientists building a product for data scientists. So it's like it's mind blowing. Not only what the tool does, but having access to all these talent. Most teams don't, and I am very well aware that most teams don't. So tooling for data is very, very critical.
So maybe we should have another podcast or maybe even some other conversation offline, or even have it recorded purely on this data and experimentation, the tooling, the North Star metrics, and each of these phases of PLG. It gives me an idea to reach back to you sometime later. Hopefully you'll be okay with that. I know we are
Absolutely,
out of.
and
Sorry, go ahead.
absolutely, you can cut this part off. If you want to get Victoriano, who's the founder of Graphext, like his entire life was around how do I make data accessible for humans to make decisions, not just data scientists and to make decisions. He's a good person to connect with as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll connect on that. I know we are out of time. Thank you for the suggestion. We'll definitely,
Thank you.
find time there. Uh, Last question to you, maybe a slightly weirder one on a softer note. You've done so many PLG false starts, right? There are so many PLG fails that people have come and shared to you. Every single podcast that you ask them, "Hey, give me one single crazy fail." What From all of these PLG false starts or failures that you have seen, could you share maybe one or maybe two of the amazing failures that you have seen? That reminds me that, hey, when you wake up in the morning, you talk about PLG false start. Is there just one or two of them? What is that
Mhm.
you can share to our audience?
And because we're talking about startups, maybe some pre-product market fit. Don't hire too soon for growth. Growth is on you. Um, if you're going to hire, and if you still if you're so let me go back. Don't hire too soon. Hiring for growth requires the people that come in for growth require certain conditions to succeed, and one of them is product market fit or very much close to product market fit. So don't hire too soon. Second thing is, if you do get product market fit, and if you do hire a growth team, make sure you know what that is
Hmm.
before you hire. Because growth is many things to many people. Growth can be running ads on Google. It can also be making your product more collaborative, more viral. It can be a number of different things. And I know a company that has hired. Company is like 2 or 3 years old, maybe 4. They've hired 3 heads of growth already. And what does this tell? What does this tell us about the capacity of founders, CEOs, most often CEOs, to hire the right people for their teams? And I think that is a false start, but not just to growth, to many things. I would the other most often than not thing that I see is that you hire fast, you fire slow, instead of the opposite. And instead of firing fast and hiring slow, and you Normally that's a recipe for failure.
That's a good learning. So don't hire like a VP of growth, don't hire VP of sales, go to product market fit, and then if you go figure it out, and then don't fire. If you have hired the right people, figure out a way to get things done, and don't unnecessarily fire them out.
It's
This is
not necessarily. I mean, you should let go. We need to let go people. Actually, we will be doing them a favor if they don't fit. My
Yeah,
point is that founders, because they're coming too fast, and then the company is growing, and then they hire as fast as they make any decision, and sometimes they're making bad hiring decisions that will have an impact down the line. And on the other hand, they're too slow to fire or don't have the courage to fire, so they made a mistake. They have the wrong team right now, and they're not fixing the problem, and that is that is really bad for everyone, even for the people they hire. So as far as hiring for growth, make sure what you're hiring for. Do you want a VP of
yeah,
marketing? Do you want a VP of growth? Most founders also think I got this company to where it is today. I know a lot about marketing. I know a lot about growth. So they micromanage the hell out of these people.
yeah, yeah.
And
Recipe for failure,
and
right?
so you if you're not ready to be a leader, right? Just don't hire. Uh, be humble. You got these people for some reason. Yeah, be humble and figure out how to leverage to take the most out of these people that you hire, and leave your ego aside. Because again, with founders, if it's not my solution, it's not the best solution, so I don't like it.
Exactly.
Do not get into those arguments. Argue about what's the objective, what is the goal, and let people run with it. Trust the team. If they're making bad decisions, it's on you. You did not provide the best context possible. Fix that. And focus on that.
Those are beautiful words to close on. Think before you do. Be humble. Don't bring in your ego. Thank you so much, Mario. So much
Have a
to
good
learn
one.
from it. Yeah, always talking to you. Thanks so much for the valuable time. By
Thank
the way,
you.
we'll
Thank you.
have notes with your LinkedIn, with your other other places like Product with Stack and so on and so forth.
Thank you
To
so
all
much.
our listeners, if you have enjoyed today's discussion, please do consider leaving a comment. If you have any suggestions, thank you, Mario, for suggesting one more person to bring on our podcast. So stay tuned for more insights, more guests, and until next time, keep thriving.
Cheers.